This is We All Be, news-free Dixie for the 21st century. See how it works? Somewhere. Can you dig it? All right, I want to thank the people who actually stayed. I know it's lunch, but I want to give y'all some food for thought. My name is Brother Ron. Like I said, I'm not a teacher here. I'm not a part of the school system, but I am a part of the system. I'm a part of the society, and I think it's your right to know who you are. School ain't gonna teach you about who you are. If you come from home and your people don't know who they are, they can't help you. All your pursuit in life, whether you succeed or fail, is based on knowledge of self. The foundation of your educational pursuits is knowledge of self. School is not responsible for teaching you who you are and how far you could go in life. The only thing school is qualified to do is teach you reading, writing, and arithmetic. You must learn critical thinking for yourself. What you just seen is evidence of what people can do, but they don't let society dictate the terms of their existence. I don't know who I'm speaking to today. I don't know who you are. I don't know you by name. I don't know your story. I don't know your zodiac sign. But I do know this, is that each and every one of y'all have gifts inside of you that may not never be realized unless you believe in yourself, if you dream these big dreams. Jammin Lunsford started in North Memphis, right? He wasn't hired to be the band director at Manassas High School. He volunteered. Like I'm volunteering, telling you all this information. He volunteered to be the band director. And he took some young black kids and he saw his music program not only being a form of entertainment, but he was helping young black boys and girls become responsible adults. Jammin Lunsford was the guy with that long baton. He was tall, dark, and handsome, very athletic, very gifted in music. I actually talked to people who was at Manassas back in the 20s. Catherine Perry Thomas, Manassas class of 32, used to practice her classical piano while Jammin Lunsford would rehearse the band. Her brother, Andrew Perry, was in that band. He was a saxophonist for Mr. Lunsford. And she said by the time those kids graduated from high school at Manassas, you thought they were 25 or 30 years old because they were so mature, because Mr. Lunsford used music to instill discipline in those people and also confidence. So like I said, the nucleus of that band were his high school students and buddies from Fisk University. He went to Fisk University. He was a Kappa man. They left Memphis in 1930 and they struggled on the road. Like they go to Cleveland and Buffalo, New York, real bad winters, ice storms, might have a bologna, cheese, and cracker between all of those guys. 4 years later, they were the house band at the Cotton Club. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Cotton Club, one of the top nightclubs in the country. This is like, he came in after Duke Ellington's orchestra and Cab Calloway's orchestra. And then his band was so fantastic, they were the #1 attraction at the Apollo Theater. Y'all know about Showtime at the Apollo, right? This man ruled the Apollo Theater for a whole decade with his orchestra. They was the most popular band for black people back in the 30s and 40s. Sometimes they have tens of thousands of people show up to his dances just to hear him perform. And he was the greatest band of his era. See, they talk about Duke Ellington and Count Basie and all those guys, but he was more popular among black people in America than all those guys. They called him the Harlem Express because they was the #1 band of choice for black people who loved to dance. They had a distinctive sound that everybody wanted, black and white bands. It was a guy named Glenn Miller. He was a great white band jazz leader. He said that Jimmy Lunsford had the best of all bands. He said Duke is great, Count is remarkable, but Lunsford tops them both because his band was made for TV, it was made for Instagram, it was made for TikTok. As you saw from that presentation, that's from 1936 and it still resonates with people today. Like them guys, they probably was doing juking. You know, so nothing really is new, just is done in different ways. There's nothing new under the sun. So he had tailor-made suits, right? His trumpet section would throw their trumpets in the air and catch them and play where they left off at. They could sing, dance, and tell jokes. And what I love most about Jimmy Lunsford, why I'm here today, is because no matter how big and famous and rich Jimmy Lunsford got, when he used to come back to Memphis back in the day, he would do free concerts and musician clinics at Manassas High School. No, free for the kids. Like the band back then was called the Manassas Rhythm Bombers, right? A friend of mine, the late great Mr. Emerson A.L.L. Jr., who's the band room, that's his name on that band room. He's a great man. He was inspired by Jimmy Lunsford and his tenor saxophonist, the great Joe Thomas from Kansas City. He was featured on there playing his tenor saxophone. Mr. A.L.L. ended up becoming one of the greatest music band directors this city has ever known. And he's also the guy who kicked Isaac Hayes out the band. Isaac Hayes used to go to Manassas. And Mr. A.L.L. kicked him out the band. And Mr. A.L.L. ended up working for Isaac Hayes at Stax. They did, look at Watch Stax. It's a documentary, a great documentary called Watch Stax, when Stax went to Watts in LA to do an amazing concert. It's worth looking at. And Mr. A.L.L. was a part of the Isaac Hayes movement. We just lost a gentleman named Sidney Kirk. He used to do free concerts for you all over the years. He passed away this year. He was Isaac Hayes' piano man. So we just lost him. And we lost Mr. A.L.L. back in 2015. But Mr. A.L.L., if you went to the Southern Heritage Classic this past time, Mr. A.L.L. co-founded the Southern Heritage Classic in his living room with Fred Jones. So if you appreciate those Southern Heritage Classic weekends, it was a cat that went to Manassas High back in the day, inspired by Jimmy Lunsford to do those things. And Jimmy Lunsford also owned and flew his own airplanes. You know, this is back in the 30s. This is the Great Depression. You're talking about the Great Inflation, all this stuff. This man owned and flew his own airplanes when they were not trying to teach black people how to fly airplanes back in the day. He brought his first airplane back in 1940 for almost $1 million in today's money. So this is during the Great Depression, right? When people were afraid to leave their money in the banks and all this other stuff. And he was flying in airplanes that he owned to gigs. Now, he married a woman named Crystal Tully, who was an English teacher at Booker T. Washington. But his first love was a woman named Dr. Yolanda Du Bois that he met at Fisk University. That's the daughter of Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, one of our great black leaders. Dr. Du Bois didn't approve of the relationship, so Yolanda had to break it off with Jimmy Lunsford. She ended up marrying this guy named County Cullen, this Harlem Renaissance poet, had the wedding of the decade. Come to find out that he was more in love with his best man than his woman. So they ran off together to Europe. This guy named Harold Jackman, they say he's the finest man in Harlem. Just Google him up and you see if you don't agree or whatever. But Jimmy never lost his love for Yolanda. And, but he ended up marrying this beautiful woman named Crystal Tully. Came from a well-to-do black family here in Memphis. They went to school at Fisk University. So she also flew airplanes as well. So why is he not remembered that well today? He died young. He died at 45. I know that might be old to y'all, but 45 is still young, trust me. You'll figure it out once you turn 40. 45 is still young. But he was up in Oregon, right? He was signing autographs in the music store right before his last concert, and he dropped dead. Now, legend has it that he got into an argument with a restaurant that didn't want to serve black people. Now, you gotta understand, Oregon is all the way up in the Pacific Northwest. Oregon, before it became a state, it became a state in 1859, 2 years before the Civil War. It said in its constitution that black folks could not own, work, or own property in Oregon. So black folks didn't start coming to Oregon really till about World War II to work in the wartime industry. So legend has it that Mr. Lunsford got into it with the restaurant about not serving his people. And so the restaurant said, we'll serve y'all. Jimmy Lunsford wanted hamburgers. The restaurant said they didn't have hamburgers, they had beef sandwiches. So they gave them beef sandwiches. And allegedly, Mr. Lunsford died but the people that played in his band who ate those beef sandwiches, they got sick as well during the concert. They didn't know that Jimmy Lunsford was dead till almost the concert was over with, right? So he had a big funeral up in New York. You know, he had people like Sammy Davis Jr., Pearl Billy, all the who's who of the black entertainment world came out for Jimmy Lunsford's funeral. He had a big funeral here in Memphis. And then what's crazy, his best friend was a guy named H.D. Whalum, who's the patriarch of the Whalum family. If you into jazz and all that, Kirk Whalum, you know, that song Whitney Houston did, I Will Always Love You. He was the saxophone soloist on that song. He's from Memphis, but his grandfather was Jimmy Lunsford's best friend. So the grandfather had his own singing group. He sung at Jimmy Lunsford's funeral in Memphis. On the way home, he died in a car accident. He got killed the same day that he buried his friend. And they're not buried too far from each other in Elmwood, just a couple, like 100 feet away, whatever. But the Whalum family also, not only does Kirk Whalum, but he had, H.D. Whalum had a son named Wendell Whalum, who was the longtime music director of the Glee club down in Morehouse. He had another son who was a famous jazz musician named Peanuts Whalum up in St. Louis. Then he had great-grandsons. If you know about Jay-Z, you know that song Rock Boys from American Gangster soundtrack? The guy who did the saxophone solo on that, that's H.D. Whalum's great-grandson from Memphis, Scooter Whalum. And then his brother, Cameron Whalum, performs with Bruno Mars. They did Uptown Funk. So that's a powerful legacy. So what I'm trying to tell y'all as I wrap it up is that every one of y'all got potential to do great things. You are only limited by your imagination and your willpower. Don't let people tell you you can't be great. Don't let nobody tell you. Talk yourself into some greatness. Try to focus on the positives. Don't worry about things you cannot control. Don't really give a second thought to what people think about you. You can't control what people think about you, how they think about you. You can't control how you view yourself. So I want y'all to stay positive. I don't know what y'all going through. I don't know if y'all have a home to go through. I don't know if when you go to school, this is the only time you actually eat anything. I don't know your situation. I don't know that if the reason some of y'all may act out is because y'all got to be the grown up at home for your siblings. I don't know. So what I'm saying is I want y'all to have some hope and believe, and don't limit yourself by having lack of imagination. So I'll give up my time. Thank y'all for being patient, for not running out for me, and the best is yet to come. I want to introduce Maestro Perry and his band to play for y'all. This is like Maestro Thomas Perry is the latest band director at Manassas. And this is a part of a legacy. Think about it. You know, Alabama just lost to Tennessee, right? Imagine Alabama not having a football program. There is no reason why Manassas shouldn't have a music program at all times. So y'all give it up for the band. Greetings, family. This is your brother Ron, with an urgent request. Can you help us honor this man, this amazing black man, James Melvin Lunsford, for at least one night in Memphis? If they could give Elvis 2 weeks out of the year in Memphis, why not honor a black man who brought music education to the city schools, who believed in black people, who lived among black people, who gave back to black people? Help us honor Jammin Lunsford on Saturday, October 22nd, 2022 at the Orpheum Theater, downtown Memphis. We are not only honoring the legacy of the first person in the history of the world to teach jazz studies in a formal educational setting up in North Memphis at Manassas High, but we also honoring black excellence and also the world-renowned Memphis music sound. So please find it in your hearts and in your wallets and in your purses and in your Cash Apps and your Vimos and Zells and Google Pay and PayPal to help us honor this brother, because we are providing this service free, but it's costing me time, money, and all types of stuff. But I want to give it free so we could learn how to pay the right respect to the righteous ancestors who believed in us, who didn't give up, give out, or give in on us. You see how it works? So thank you all for even considering, because you know that the best is yet to come. Because let this man's burial in Memphis be inspirations for many generations more to plant seeds in your people, to invest in your people, to believe in your people, to achieve with your people. Thank you so much. One love.